Hello, happy Friday. Welcome to Painting with Ugly Colors. If you have any intention of using pretty colors, I suggest you find another channel to watch. Have a good night. It's okay, no hard feelings. Today was cool. Today was a really nice day in Jersey. It was 80 degrees, and I had no idea other than the fact that my dad asked me to go outside to do something. I would have thought it was like 40 degrees outside today. But because of that, I ended up taking a nap, and it was really nice, and that's why the video is kind of late today. But I think it made it so that I had a little bit more energy and a little bit more fun making this. This painting is of a scene that will be familiar to most people who have lived in the city. It's a construction site that I'm not really sure what they're doing usually when they have these, but there will be a smokestack coming out from the street, and it'll have vapor coming out from it. And it's really beautiful, especially at night, because all the lights from the buildings, like the neon signs and the street lights and the cars and their headlights and their taillights, all these different lights are reflecting off of the vapor, and the vapor is just like, it keeps going. It's kind of stinky sometimes. Sometimes I think it doesn't smell, but it's cool for a picture, and it's cool for a painting. So here we are with it today. My friend suggested to me that today I talk about edges, and I was excited for that because this painting is very good for talking about edges. Unfortunately, where the edges come in won't really come into the painting until the very end, but I'll do my best for you. I just wanted to preface the little talk about edges with saying that I'm not incredibly proficient when it comes to edges. Until recently, I haven't been really mindful of them in my own work. They've always been kind of like an afterthought to me, wrongfully so. I have been enlightened to edges more recently. In part, thank you to the amazing Nicholas Uribe. He, in one of his videos, had a really amazing chat about edges, and it helped me a ton. And I'll try to be as informative as I can about edges. So edges, as I know them, can be used for a variety of things. They can be used to describe turning form. They can be used to describe depth, which is in the same boat, but no, it's different. And they can be used to describe significance of an object in a painting. Its prominence, right? I think it's important to, beside the idea of edges, I think it's important to be mindful that when you are making a painting, you are world building. You are describing a world to us. In a sense, you are telling us a story. I am putting to you guys a world with this painting. And the reason I say that is because this world, and within it exist laws that I have to follow in order for the painting to make any sense to you. Like, for example, if I were to paint this vapor upside down, and the dense part was up top, and the dissipating our area was at the bottom, but the rest of the world stayed the same. All the buildings were still on the bottom. I don't think it would really make any sense, and it would be kind of hard to describe, and it would be difficult to like write it off as something that makes sense. And this is an extreme example, but this is kind of like what I'm getting at. If I turned a vapor cloud upside down and I turned the rest of the world and the buildings upside down, then it would make sense. It would just be an upside down painting, but everything would still make sense relative to what it, in the world and what it is next to. So that plays into edges, because if you're building a painting where a soft edge means a thing, like a soft edge means that something is far away, then we are going to take it for granted that all soft edges in your painting mean a similar thing, or that we can read them that way. And of course, this doesn't mean that you have to like be boring with your edge play or too neat or orderly. Like, it can be crazy. You can get super crazy with a painting and to still have it make sense, but really it's a matter of consistency, and you can break that consistency. Like, truly, you can do whatever you want in a painting, but I'm just advocating that you be aware of the decision to be consistent or inconsistent, or describe a world to us consistently, and the laws that exist within that world for us to be able to follow a painting. So with that being said, I usually just use edges in terms of soft and hard. The biggest example in this painting is obviously the vapor cloud. So where the base of the vapor is at like the points of it, it is more hard edges. It's like very stark, because that is where it's coming from. That is where it is most dense and the brightest, and that is also where it is closest to us. So because I don't stray too far from the logic of like the universe that we live in, I make the edges harder for something that is closer to us, and something that is like more dense and compact, as opposed to the vapor that is like blowing away from us and closer toward the sky. You can see that the edges start to dissipate and fall apart, and they start to fall into the sky, blend into the sky, and that gives the illusion of the vapor dissipating, and it's not as dense anymore. I could describe that also with like the drawing. I could be a little bit more precise with my brush strokes and draw in the narrative that the smoke is getting less dense up there, but I'm lazy, and I can do it with edges. I can just make edges tell that story for me, and I don't even have to really be all that concerned with detail in the smoke, because I imagine that like it doesn't seem that there's too much detail in smoke, but you can definitely be very faithful to how forms follow how the forms form in the smoke. But I wasn't. Those brushstrokes are pretty sporadic up there, and they don't make too much sense if you think about them. But this the way that I handled the edges really said everything that I cared to say about them. So as long as you're being consistent in the way that you tell us about what makes sense in your painting, you can have a great variety of edges. You can have, and then the edge is really just where two masses of color, two shapes of color meet each other. So that can be a hard edge, and that can be a soft edge, and with a soft edge that you just like blend one into the other. And you can also have like, what I like to do, especially if I'm painting with like gouache, is I just try to mix a good color for in between, one or two colors in between the two masses that gives it a nice transition from one shape to the other. I think mixing that color is a very fun challenge for me. And it's also a chance to add a little bit of variety in hue, usually, or variety in tone, and that always makes things more interesting. I also use the edge of my flat brush to make lines, and I do that for a couple reasons. First reason being that if you try to take like a pointed brush to make lines like that, those lines on the right of the painting where the building is, I always paint wet into wet because I usually make all my paintings in one session, and that's not like necessarily impressive or anything. That's just because of my lack of being able to commit to anything and like short attention span and things like that. So I usually paint wet into wet, and if you are painting with like thick oil paint and you go with a pointed brush and you try to like make a nice line, you usually, you can do it, but it's really tedious because you gotta be really light on the touch, and it has to be a very small amount of paint on the brush, so you get like a short stroke, and it's like you have to have the lightest touch, because if you don't have a light touch about it, you're gonna push the paint from on the bottom layer from underneath, and you can easily avoid that with a little bit of planning, but I don't always plan. And so, but don't get me wrong, I still use like a pointed brush for line work sometimes, like it can be really elegant and calligraphic sometimes. But in most cases, a flat brush, you just put the paint on the edge and you like go along and you make a line, and it's like perfect because it gives you a straight line, and you can get a good amount of distance from one load of the brush, and it also gives you a little bit of texture depending on how you do it, because the way the bristles are, if like you don't take care of your brushes or you're a little bit chaotic, the brushes will leave a nice texture along the length of the line. And anytime you have texture, it creates a little bit more interest. And of course, you have to be mindful of whether or not that texture helps your painting or not. But I like it. It never really gave me too much of a problem or any problem. But I don't know. I'm very like easy when it comes to things that happen incidentally. Like, oh, you added this brush, just added some texture to my line. Like, I'm not gonna complain about that. And yeah, that's really about it for what I can say about edges. They're great. You don't have too much to know too much more. Like, of course you can go very deep into edges if you want, but basically just be mindful about how you're using them and what they mean in the world that you build in each painting, and it'll go a long way. It'll make a big difference. Like, if you weren't thinking about edges before and you go into your next painting and you decide what to do with your edges and make them work for you, big difference. Like, you'll love it. It's fun. It's just another challenge, another piece of the puzzle to work with, really. And there it is. Really, the painting is mostly done, and I love it. This is probably my favorite painting so far this week. Any chance to like paint anything resembling a cloud is a happy day for me, for sure. And just, you can see that I didn't go in with a flat brush there. I went with a round brush, and it's a very rough, mistreated round brush, but it gives nice texture. And sometimes, especially in areas up there, like where the vapor is dissipating, I thought some texture was nice there, because anytime you have like some hard texture on a soft blended area, it's good, makes good, interesting stuff. So that's it for today, and that was about my 7th time recording that. So I think that was good. I think I'm gonna stick with that one. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you had a good Friday. I hope you're doing something fun tonight indoors, and that like social distancing isn't being too hard on you. And I'll see you guys again on Monday. Thank you for the great, amazing support this week, and being into what I do, and like sharing the love of art with me. And it's been really fun. Can't thank you enough. So good night and stay kind, and I'll see you all again soon.